In this next mobile SEO video, we're going to talk about user experience and user interface, UX and UI. So we're going to talk about focusing our designs on the user, which is very important on a mobile device. We'll talk about tap targets, which are the HTML buttons that we actually touch as we navigate around the web. We'll talk about margins and spacing and what we need on a mobile device, what's required. And we'll talk about font sizes and how we need to consider the screen size and the user's eyes and make sure that everything is legible and that the user can engage with our content. So the first thing we talk about is a tap target. A tap target is like an HTML box. It's actually what reacts when we touch our phone. Now, we've probably all had this experience where we tapped on a target and it was too close to something else and we hit something we didn't mean to hit. Well, when you do that, you typically hit the back button. That's a terrible signal in Google's eyes. If everybody on your website is constantly hitting the back button, that tells Google that they're not finding what they want. And so it's very important that our tap targets are sized correctly. Well, leave it to Google to go out and measure everybody's fingertips. And they decided that the average adult finger pad, the tip of the finger, is going to be 10 millimeters. So if you think about 10 millimeters, that's very small. How big do we need to make a button in order for us to hit it? So Google has given us guidance that all of our buttons or our tap targets need to be 7 millimeters by 7 millimeters. And so at minimum, we don't want to see them go below 7 millimeters. That will allow all of us to be able to tap on the button that we're looking for. Now, you might be thinking right now, okay, well, are they really measuring? How does Google even know that? What a lot of people don't realize is with this new crawler that Google has made for mobile, they will actually load your page and overlay a grid, and they measure all the elements. And we know this because when elements are not the right size, we'll see errors in our mobile usability chart. So a 7 millimeter by 7 millimeter tap target is required for important buttons and elements up in the top of the page. But if you're trying to get into that smaller footer information, like small links to other places on the website, like privacy policy, terms and conditions, those need to be 5 millimeters apart. So they can be a much smaller target because they're not prominent and they're not as important, but they still need to have 5 millimeters of spacing on a mobile device so we can get in there and we can actually tap what we're looking for. The next thing we talk about is fonts, and they need to be legible. So in history, we've always had a 12 point or a 12 pixel font. And I think the reason why is because that's just what was natural on a word processor. If we loaded a Word document, it would just default to a 12 point font. Well, the problem that we have on our screens today is our screens are getting higher resolution and higher resolution. And what that means is that 12 pixels has become smaller and smaller and smaller. As the pixels get more finite, more small, then so does our font size. And so Google has just come out and said, make your minimum font size 16 pixels. And then if you have something that is larger and needs to be bigger, you could do it 110, 120% of that 16 pixels. And then Google's also given us a guidance for line spacing, that our line spacing needs to be 1.2 EMs. And what that does is it spaces out our text enough that it becomes very legible. And so if the base font is too small, we're not going to be able to read it. And so if we go back into our style and we look at it, you'll notice right here where it says style, body, and then it says font size, and it's 16 pixels. So what that does is that sets a default for the entire website. Now, there's another designation here. It says .small and .large. So the small selector and the large selector are going to manipulate that 16-point font. And so if it says font size 12 pixels, that means our smaller font will be down to 12, and then font size 20, those are going to be our larger font sizes at 125% of the baseline. So spacing also matters. You can't just have large font, you have to space them out so the human eye can read through it. And so the 1.2 EMs is enough line spacing that you can make a 16-point font legible. Now, if you go to a much larger font, you probably want to have more line spacing in there. The next video we're going to talk about is on content blocking. It's going to be a short video. It's just really about what we do and don't do with this new crawler. And there's some old habits that need to go away. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'll see you in the next video.